What happens when royalty walks onto a talk show stage thinking the crown still means something, only to discover that in America, respect is earned, not inherited? In just 34 seconds of one comment, everything fell apart. But before we get into this absolute train wreck, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side. We're exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this outrageous behavior because what you're about to witness is beyond belief. Jon Stewart's late-night show had become the place where celebrities came to be real, to have actual conversations, to drop the act. But what happened when Meghan Markle sat down in that guest chair was something nobody could have predicted. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in entitlement meeting its match. The stage was set like any other night. The audience buzzed with excitement. Jon Stewart, the veteran host known for his sharp wit and his ability to cut through nonsense, welcomed his guest with his signature warmth. Meghan walked out, waving to the crowd, soaking in the applause like she owned the place. She sat down, crossed her legs, and smiled that practice smile we've all seen 1,000 times. Jon started with something simple, something easy. "So, great to have you here tonight. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while now." Meghan tilted her head. That move she always does when she wants to seem thoughtful. "Well, Jon, I'm so grateful to be here. You know, it's important for me to share my truth." Already, just seconds in, you could feel something. The way she said, "my truth," like there was her truth, and then there was everyone else's irrelevant truth. Jon, being the professional he is, just nodded and continued. "Let's talk about your journey. You've had quite a transformation over the years, from actress to duchess to, well, where you are now." Meghan's smile tightened, just a little, just enough to notice. "I prefer to think of it as evolution, Jon. Growth. You know, not everyone can handle watching a woman evolve." The audience went quiet. Jon raised his eyebrows. "I don't think that's what people have an issue with, but okay, let's dive into that. You've made a lot of claims over the past few years, big claims, about your time in the royal family, about how you were treated." "Not claims, Jon. Facts. My lived experience. And yes, I was treated horribly. They were cruel. They were cold. They were—" She paused for effect. "Racist." Jon leaned forward. "That's a serious accusation. And you've said this before, but you've also been pretty vague about who said what and when. Don't you think if something that serious happened, you owe it to everyone to be specific?" Meghan's face changed. The mask slipped. "Owe it to everyone? I don't owe anyone anything, Jon. I survived a system that tried to destroy me. I don't need to provide receipts for my trauma." "But you're making public accusations?" Jon said calmly. "You're telling the world that this institution is racist. That has consequences. That affects real people, real family members. Don't they deserve to know exactly what happened so they can address it?" "They know what they did," Meghan shot back. Her voice had an edge now, sharp and defensive. "And frankly, Jon, I'm surprised you're sitting here defending them. I thought you were supposed to be progressive." The audience gasped. "You don't come onto someone's show and tell them what they're supposed to be." Jon's expression didn't change, but you could see the shift. The gloves were about to come off. "I'm not defending anyone," Jon said slowly. "I'm asking questions. That's kind of my job. And I'm progressive enough to know that making accusations without evidence, even against institutions I don't particularly like, isn't justice. It's just slander." Meghan laughed. Actually laughed. This condescending little chuckle like Jon had just said something adorable and stupid. "Slander? Wow. You really are just like the rest of them, aren't you?" "The rest of who?" Jon asked. "The media, the establishment. All of you sitting in your comfortable positions, questioning victims, demanding proof like our pain isn't enough." Jon sat back in his chair. "Your pain is valid. Nobody's saying it isn't. But pain doesn't give you the right to make serious accusations and then hide behind victimhood when someone asks you to back them up. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works when you're a woman of color trying to survive in a white supremacist institution." Meghan fired back. The audience was dead silent now. This wasn't fun anymore. This wasn't entertainment. This was uncomfortable. Jon rubbed his face, took a breath. "Okay, let's try a different approach. You've also talked a lot about privacy, about wanting privacy for your family. But you've done multiple interviews, a documentary series, a book, podcasts. You're literally everywhere. How do you reconcile wanting privacy while simultaneously being the most public person possible? Meghan's jaw clenched. I'm telling my story, Jon, on my terms. That's different from being hunted by paparazzi or having lies written about me in tabloids. But you're still very much in the public eye by choice, Jon pressed. You're still using your royal title. You're still trading on that connection while simultaneously trashing it. Do you see how that might come across as, I don't know, hypocritical? I'm not trashing anything, Meghan said, her voice rising. I'm speaking truth to power, and if that makes people uncomfortable, good. They should be uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable with truth, Jon said. I'm uncomfortable with inconsistency. You can't have it both ways. You can't be private and public. You can't be a victim and an aggressor. You can't demand respect while showing none to the people you're talking about. Meghan stood up, just stood right up in the middle of the interview. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Jon looked genuinely surprised. I don't have to sit here and be attacked, Meghan said. Attacked? Jon repeated. I'm asking you questions. That's not an attack. That's a conversation. That's what you signed up for when you agreed to come on this show. I signed up to share my journey, not to be interrogated like I'm on trial. You're not being interrogated, Jon said, still seated, still calm. But if basic questions feel like an interrogation, maybe that says more about your story than it does about my questions. Meghan pointed at him, actually pointed at him like a parent scolding a child. You know what your problem is, Jon? You're intimidated by strong women. You can't handle someone who won't just sit here and let you mansplain her own life to her. The audience actually booed, not at Jon, at her. That's when you knew this had gone completely sideways. Jon Stewart's audience didn't boo guests. They were respectful, open-minded, willing to hear different perspectives. But this was too much. Jon stood up too now. Strong women don't need to pull the gender card when they're losing an argument. Strong women can defend their positions with facts and logic. What you're doing right now, this isn't strength. This is deflection. I'm not deflecting anything, Meghan snapped. I'm standing up for myself against yet another man who thinks he knows better than me about my own experiences. I never said I know better than you about your experiences, Jon replied. I said you need to be consistent. I said you need to back up serious accusations. I said you can't play victim while simultaneously attacking everyone around you. None of that is about your experiences. It's about your behavior. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. I don't need this. I don't need to be here. I came on this show as a courtesy to you, and this is how you treat me? A courtesy? Jon looked genuinely baffled now. You came on this show because you have things to promote. Let's be honest about that at least. Unbelievable, Meghan said, shaking her head. She looked at the audience. You're all witnessing this, right? You see how I'm being treated? The audience just stared. A few people actually shook their heads. No, this was not going how Meghan expected, at all. Jon crossed his arms. What I think the audience sees is someone who came here expecting softballs and got actual questions instead. Someone who can dish it out to the royal family, to the media, to anyone who disagrees with her, but absolutely cannot take even the gentlest pushback. Gentle? Meghan's voice went up an octave. You've been attacking me since I sat down. I've been asking you questions, Jon said again, slower this time. If you think questions are attacks, you're in the wrong business. You're a public figure making public statements. You don't get to be immune from scrutiny. I'm not immune from scrutiny. I'm immune from disrespect. And that's what this is. Complete and utter disrespect. Do you know who I am? There it was. The moment everyone watching knew this was about to explode. Do you know who I am? The 4 words that signal someone has completely lost the plot. Jon's face said it all. He was done. Yeah, I know who you are, Jon said quietly. You're someone who married into royalty and now spends every waking moment talking about how terrible it was while refusing to let it go. You're someone who wants sympathy and book deals and Netflix contracts. You're someone who plays the victim while living in a mansion. I know exactly who you are. The audience erupted in applause. Not polite applause, real, genuine. Finally, someone said it, applause. Meghan looked around like she couldn't believe what was happening. Like the simulation had broken and reality wasn't making sense anymore. This is disgusting, she said. You're disgusting. This whole thing is disgusting. And yet you're still here. Jon pointed out. That did it. That was the final straw. Meghan turned and started walking off the stage. Jon called after her. We still have 12 minutes left in the interview. She didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge him, just kept walking. But then she stopped, turned back, marched right back to Jon's desk. The audience went completely silent, everyone leaning forward to see what would happen next. You think you're so clever, don't you? Meghan said. You think you can just dismantle me on your little show and everyone will applaud you for it. But you know what? History will remember me. History will remember that I stood up to a corrupt institution. What will you be remembered for, Jon? Mean tweets and cheap jokes? Jon didn't flinch. I'll be remembered for asking questions, for holding people accountable, for not letting celebrities use trauma as a shield against criticism. If that makes me the bad guy in your story, I can live with that. You're not the bad guy in my story, Meghan said coldly. You're nobody in my story. She turned again to leave, and this time Jon didn't stop her, but the audience did. They started chanting, slowly at first, then louder. Stay and talk, stay and talk, stay and talk. Meghan froze. You could see her shoulders tense up. She was trapped between wanting to storm off dramatically and not wanting to look like she was running away from a crowd chanting at her. She stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 seconds. Then she spun around one final time. You want me to stay and talk? Fine. Let's talk about how Jon Stewart makes millions of dollars sitting behind a desk, judging people while contributing nothing meaningful to society. Let's talk about how easy it is to be a critic when you've never actually done anything brave in your entire life. Let's talk about how you've built a career on being negative and cynical and acting superior to everyone. The chanting stopped. The audience was shocked into silence again. Jon let her finish. He didn't interrupt, didn't talk over her, just stood there and took it. When she was done, breathing hard, face flushed, he waited a beat. You done? He asked. I'm done with you, Meghan said. Okay, well, for what it's worth, I have done things. I've raised money for 9/11 first responders. I've fought for veterans' benefits. I've used this platform to actually help people, not just complain about how mean everyone is to me. But sure, I'm the one who hasn't done anything. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She'd gone too far, and she knew it. Everyone knew it. She'd attacked him personally, and he'd calmly listed actual accomplishments. There was no coming back from that. I want you to leave, she finally said. Get your producers to escort me out properly, because I'm not staying here another second. Jon gestured to the side of the stage. Door's right there. You know how to use it. You've practiced this dramatic exit like 3 times now. 4th time's the charm. A few people in the audience actually laughed. Nervous laughter, but still, Meghan's face went red. Actually red. She looked like she wanted to say something else, wanted to have the last word, but she'd run out of ammunition. She'd played every card. The gender card, the race card, the victim card, the you don't know me card. Nothing had worked. She walked off stage. This time, for real. No stopping, no turning back, no final dramatic monologue. Just gone. The second she disappeared into the wings, the audience exploded, cheering, applauding, some people even standing up. Jon just stood there looking exhausted. He walked back to his desk, sat down, looked directly at the camera. Well, that happened. I want to be clear about something. I invited her here for a real conversation. I wasn't trying to ambush her or trick her or make her look bad. I asked the same questions I'd ask anyone. If that's too much, if basic accountability is too much, then maybe the problem isn't with the questions. He paused, ran his hand through his hair. Look, nobody's saying her experiences weren't real. Nobody's saying she didn't face difficulties. But you don't get to weaponize your pain and then act shocked when someone asks you to be consistent about it. You don't get to make serious accusations and then hide behind identity politics when someone asks for specifics. That's not how grown-up conversations work. The audience applauded again. Jon held up a hand. And before anyone tries to make this about me being mean to a woman or not believing victims or whatever, save it. I've had hundreds of women on this show. Strong women, accomplished women, women who faced real hardship and discrimination. And you know what? They could all handle a conversation. They could all defend their positions. They didn't need to storm off and call me names because I asked follow-up questions. He looked tired, really tired. Like this had taken something out of him. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have our scheduled musical guest because apparently we have some extra time now. Stick around. The camera cut away, but the audience kept buzzing. People were talking to each other, animated, excited, shocked. This was the kind of television moment that people would be talking about for weeks, months, maybe years. Not because it was planned or scripted or designed for maximum drama, but because it was real, it was raw. It was what happens when entitlement meets accountability and doesn't like what it sees in the mirror. Backstage, according to people who were there, Meghan was furious. Not embarrassed, not reflective, furious, demanding apologies, threatening legal action, claiming she'd been set up. Her team was scrambling, trying to do damage control before the show even finished airing. But what could they do? It was all on camera. Every word, every expression, every dramatic exit attempt. There was no spinning this. The musical guest performed, the show ended. Jon did his usual sign-off, thanking everyone for watching, reminding people to be kind to each other, professional until the very end. That's who he was. That's who he'd always been. Someone who could take a hit and keep going. Someone who didn't need to be liked by everyone. Someone who valued truth over comfort. The internet exploded immediately. Social media went absolutely insane. People were taking sides, analyzing every word, making memes, creating hashtags. But here's the thing. Here's what really mattered. The vast majority of people sided with Jon, not because they hated Meghan, not because of some coordinated attack, but because they'd watched the same thing everyone else had watched. They'd seen someone ask reasonable questions and get attacked for it. They'd seen someone try to have a conversation and get accused of everything from misogyny to being part of the establishment. People were tired. Tired of celebrities playing victim while living lives of incredible privilege. Tired of serious accusations being thrown around with no evidence. Tired of anyone who dared to question the narrative being labeled as a bad person. Jon Stewart had said what a lot of people were thinking but were afraid to say. And he'd done it without being mean, without being unfair, without attacking her as a person. He'd simply asked her to back up her claims and be consistent, and that was apparently too much. This wasn't about royal family drama. This wasn't about taking sides in some celebrity feud. This was about something bigger. It was about accountability. It was about the difference between being a victim and playing the victim. It was about the idea that having a platform comes with responsibility. That you can't just say whatever you want and expect everyone to nod along because you've claimed some kind of identity-based immunity from criticism. Jon Stewart had been in the game long enough to know how this worked. He knew that asking those questions would make him a target. He knew that standing his ground would get him labeled. He did it anyway. Because that's what journalists do. That's what good hosts do. They ask the uncomfortable questions. They push back on inconsistencies. They don't just provide a platform for whatever narrative someone wants to spin. And Meghan, she showed exactly who she was in that moment. Someone who can't handle being challenged. Someone who expects deference and gets hostile when she doesn't receive it. Someone who uses serious issues like racism and sexism as weapons in arguments rather than engaging with the actual points being made. Someone who thinks being famous means being above scrutiny. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a professional doing his job, staying calm, asking fair questions. On the other side, someone spiraling into personal attacks and dramatic exits because she couldn't defend her own positions. One person acting like an adult. One person acting like a child who'd been told no for the first time. This is what happens when someone lives in a bubble for too long. When everyone around you agrees with everything you say. When you're surrounded by yes people and handlers and publicists who never challenge you. When you mistake criticism for persecution and questions for attacks. You forget how to have normal human interactions. You forget that respect is earned, not demanded. You forget that being famous doesn't make you right. Jon Stewart reminded everyone of something important that night. That it's okay to ask questions. That it's okay to expect consistency. That it's okay to push back when something doesn't add up. And most importantly, that doing those things doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you honest. The audience knew it. The viewers knew it. Deep down, probably even Meghan knew it. But admitting it would require the kind of self-reflection and humility that she'd shown absolutely zero capacity for. So instead, she walked off that stage, convinced she was the victim of yet another attack, another example of the world being unfair to her. Never mind that she'd been treated with more patience and respect than she'd shown in return. Never mind that she'd been given multiple chances to actually answer the questions. Never mind that her own behavior was what made the interview uncomfortable, not Jon's questions. This was the moment the mask fully came off. This was the moment that casual observers who might have been sympathetic before saw the reality, not the carefully crafted public image, not the rehearsed talking points, but the real person, underneath. Someone who genuinely believes the rules don't apply to her. Someone who thinks her title, her status, her identity gives her the right to say and do whatever she wants without consequence. Jon didn't destroy her that night. She destroyed herself. He just gave her enough rope and she took care of the rest. Every dramatic exit attempt, every personal attack, every deflection and accusation, it all added up to paint a picture that no amount of PR could fix. This wasn't edited to make her look bad. This wasn't taken out of context. This was just her, being herself, when things didn't go exactly how she wanted them to go. And that's the thing about live television. That's the thing about real conversations. You can't control them. You can't script them. You can't edit out the parts where you show who you really are. It's raw and real and sometimes uncomfortable, but it's honest. And honesty was clearly something that Meghan wasn't prepared for. So what did we learn from this disaster? We learned that fame and titles don't protect you from having to defend your positions. We learned that playing victim only works for so long before people start asking questions. We learned that journalists who actually do their jobs will always be more respected than celebrities who expect softball treatment. And we learned that Jon Stewart, even after all these years, is still one of the few people willing to have real conversations instead of just conducting fawning interviews. 34 seconds? That's all it took. 34 seconds after he asked her to be specific about her accusations. Everything that came after was inevitable. The defensiveness, the attacks, the exits, it was all there waiting to come out. Jon just asked the question that triggered the avalanche. And once it started, there was no stopping it, no controlling it, no spinning it into something it wasn't. This will be studied in journalism schools and media classes, not as an example of how to ambush a guest, but as an example of how to maintain professionalism in the face of chaos, how to stay calm when someone is attacking you personally, how to keep asking the right questions even when it's uncomfortable. Jon Stewart gave a masterclass in how to handle an interview when the guest has no interest in actually being interviewed. And somewhere, in a mansion far away from normal people's problems, Meghan probably still thinks she was the hero of this story. Still thinks she was unfairly attacked. Still thinks everyone else is the problem. That's the saddest part. Not that the interview went badly, but that she likely learned nothing from it, because learning would require admitting she was wrong, and people like that never admit they're wrong. They just move on to the next interview, the next platform, the next opportunity to play victim, and hope the host is too scared or too starstruck to ask real questions. Jon Stewart wasn't scared, and he wasn't starstruck. He was just a guy doing his job, trying to have an honest conversation. And that was too much for royalty to handle.